What's up, you guys? From the Neighborhood Geek here, doing another retro video game review. This time on a cartoon property I never thought, excuse me, I'd ever talk about on my page. Yes, regular show. Mordecai and Rigby in 8-bit land. Cool, rated E for everyone. Okay, that's good to know. Yes, this was made exclusively for the 3DS. This was published by D3 Publisher, who are well known for publishing cartoon games or cartoons based off, games based off cartoons. This was developed by WayForward, who is a very well-known development studio in the video game world, and they've worked on a whole bunch of different properties, and I think they've worked on original properties. They developed one of my favorite video games based off the Aliens franchise, Aliens Infestation, which I did do a review on like a year or two ago. So if you're interested in that, check that video out. Yes, my history, because like I said, I'm trying to do my best to just focus on the game itself. But I do want to give a little bit of background information about my history with regular show. I got into it when it came out, and that was around 2010, I want to say. Like 2010 is when Adventure Time, the regular show, first came to Cartoon Network, or first started airing on Cartoon Network. I think I remember it was like new episodes every Tuesday or something like that. I still remember that. It's crazy. So I was like in 5th grade when regular show was on. And I fell in love. Both Adventure Time and regular show are two of childhood shows for me, as far as like my pre-teen years, I would say. Unfortunately, I did kind of fall off up until a certain point. I know they made a TV movie, which was really cool. I think I've seen bits and pieces of that. I've seen the finale. I've seen like the last season, which was okay. The last season was entertaining. It was good. So at least for me, whenever I decide to go back and properly watch the show, there are still seasons I haven't seen yet. But what I did see of the show, of course, I love, and I do have a lot of favorite episodes from the early seasons, that I grew up watching. The series was created by J.G. Quintel. Very cool. J.G. is a very cool, interesting person. If you're interested, like I said, I can't get into all that information in this 10-minute review, but if you're interested about the history of the making of the show and JG's background and all that stuff, I highly recommend you check that out yourself. And there's a couple videos and interviews on him that you could watch. So, like I said, I find that very informative. So, like I said, check that information out if you want. Okay, this game is an example of you're a fan of a property and you find out, oh snap, they're making a video game. And the game not living up to your expectations, I would say. That's kind of how I would not represent. That's kind of how I would describe Mordecai and Rigby in 8-bit land. Side note, I should have pulled it out. Oh wait, hang on. Okay, you guys probably can't see it that well because it's black and it blends in with the background, but here is my 3DS. I'm not sure which model it is. It might be a first year model. I got this for free really quick. Here's the last game I played, which was Metroid Samus Returns. It still has a stylus and it still works and operates. I made sure to take really good care of this system. I don't know if I'll sell it. I sold my Wii recently, like a month ago. And you see I still have games. I still have a handful of games. Some DS and 3DS. This is my old Nintendo DS case from almost 10 plus years ago, and it's still, for the most part, still works. It's still in good condition. But yeah, funny story. So my dad used to work at a college, and one of the students left their 3DS behind. The person, to my knowledge, never came to reclaim it. So my dad's manager was like, my dad's manager just took it and placed it in their office, and like I said, the student never came back to get it. And of course, my dad's manager knew that my dad had children. He was like, well, would your son be interested in having this? And he brought it home and gave it to me, and I still have it. It still works, and I still play video games on it occasionally. So yeah, I just thought it was always a crazy story. Like I literally got a free 3DS because of someone else's mistakes. I feel bad for that college student, but like I said, they never came back to get it. So it ended up being in good hands. Anyway, anyway, moving on. So like I said, I don't think this was received well. I think this got mixed reviews, which is a shame because if you've seen, I'm gonna assume that you're a fan of regular show. And again, I think I may have mentioned this came out in 2013. If you're a fan of the series, I'll say that right off the bat. If you're a fan of the series, I think you'll like it. I do remember liking what I played, but for me, I think it just kind of came off a little too challenging, and unfortunately, I never could get past the final boss. And now I sold, like I said, I sold this game. I had it in my possession for years, and I sold it with a couple other games, I think last year. So I doubt if I'll ever play it again, but I do know 3DS emulation is a thing. So maybe one day I'll attempt to go back and play it through emulator so I could, experience beating the game. Um, but like I said, if you like challenging games, you might be able to look past the flaws and have a good time. Um, so what is the story of this game? It's very in universe to the show as far as the writing and stuff. You are we see Mordecai and Rigby. Mordecai being the blue jay, Rigby being the raccoon, who are two main characters of the show. They work in a park, and they're kind of like 20-year-old slackers, basically. I think originally the show was intended to be on Adult Swim, and then it got moved to Cartoon Network, so they did kind of had to tone down some of the adult humor and content they had planned on putting into the show originally. So their boss, Benson, who's, I kid you not, a gumball machine. I would assume you're familiar with the show if you're watching this video. He tells them he wants them to cut the grass or mow the lawn or whatever. So right when they're about to start doing that, a console appears out of nowhere, which is hella weird, but that's pretty in universe for a regular show. So Mordecai and Rigby get distracted and they go to, I guess they check it out, and then they go play on it, and they end up getting sucked into the video game console. Okay, cool. It was kind of reminiscent of Battletoads. One of the Battletoads games did something similar. So we find out that the person behind getting them trapped in the game is a villain from the show who has appeared a handful of times and has became a really serious threat to Mordecai Rigby and their friends, the other characters. So that's really cool. Of course, I won't spoil who the villain is, but I thought that was really cool. Like, oh, they used that character to be the villain of this game. That's neat. So I believe there's 4 levels, which I honestly don't remember there being 4, but like I said, it's been forever since I played it. So, and there are different gameplay styles, like Mordecai and Rigby, I keep saying Rigby. Mordecai and Rigby play differently from each other. Mordecai has the ability to double jump and do other various things. And Rigby, having a shorter stature, he can like crawl between spaces and other type of stuff like that. And you get different abilities. Like there was an episode from maybe season 1 called Death Kwon Do, where you grow a mullet and you put on jean shorts and you learn a special type of martial arts. And that's an ability you can obtain in the game and use it, throughout the level. There's some shooting elements. In the show, they were very heavy on retro video games like Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, arcade games, which I'm assuming those are the type of games JG grew up playing. So that's kind of like the vibe of this game, like an 8-bit arcade type of feel to it, which isn't a bad thing. Like I said, it's okay. It's okay. Like I said in the beginning, if you're a fan of the show, I think you'll like it. I liked it, even though I didn't beat it. I still liked what I played. So, if you're interested, it might be worth your time, especially if you're just now getting into the show and you want to check out the game, knock yourself out. But What's up, you guys? Friendly Neighborhood Geek here, doing another, I guess, semi-mini movie game review. This time on Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. Yes. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I did a review on the Terminator 3 Redemption video game, and I really enjoyed that game. It had some drawbacks, unfortunately. Um, But for what it was solid. It was probably the closest we got to a game where you played as Terminator and felt like Terminator, honestly. Um, my history with Terminator franchise, I think I saw T2, which is considered one of the greatest sequels ever made. I saw that a handful of times when I was younger, and I actually really enjoyed Terminator 3. It's one of my favorites, honestly. Salvation. I'm gonna assume you're familiar with Terminator if you're watching this. Salvation was okay. Some of the later ones are kind of, meh, they're okay. Kind of hit or miss, unfortunately. Of yeah, I've seen the first one. I like the first one. So really, the first three I like. Everything after that are just okay, I guess. um, but I'm a fan. Like I said, I like the series. I like the characters and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Again, the Terminator is probably one of Arnold Schwarzenegger's, if not his number one role, one of his most like top five roles he's ever done. So it's always cool to see him as that character. So this was developed by Atari, and this is solid. This is a solid little game. I think I played this like twice all the way through. It has its challenging moments, of course, but it's playable. It's a good time. So basically, this kind of follows the story of the movie Terminator 3. We're playing as the I think excuse me, TX. I believe or I think that's what he's called. This model, or T850 or something. Yeah, maybe it's like no, I think it's called the T850. Yeah, the original Terminator was T800 model. Um, so of course he's reprogrammed in the future. Of course, it takes place in the future. The Resistance has captured him and reprogrammed him to help humanity or help save humanity, and eventually go back in time and save John Connor, who would later be the general or leader of the Resistance in the future. So to protect him and prevent another Terminator from going back in the past and keywording him, like I said, our Terminator is sent to protect him. I know, kind of tongue twister. So the first half of the game takes place in the future. You're basically sent out to do various missions, fighting against Skynet, who are the main antagonists, who created the company that created the Terminators, basically. You have to fight Skynet. And like I said, it's very mission heavy, which makes sense for the context of the story. You just go on a lot of various missions, doing various things, whether if it's destroying a base or a bunker or rescuing civilians or something, rescuing fellow resistance fighters. We have a few boss fights, a handful of boss fights here and there. We do have a final boss fight against our main evil Terminator, the TX, who was our first female Terminator, I think, introduced, at least in the movies. I'm not sure about the comics or anything like that. And she was a really cool antagonist. So I believe she is our final boss, of course, makes sense. Um, and then eventually we go to the past or present, however you want to call it, and do a bunch of different missions. And the Terminator, he plays, again, it's a Game Boy game. He plays well. He controls well. He has the he has the ability to do this funny little punch. Like he can punch, melee attack, punch and kick if you don't have any weapons or anything like that on you. Um, he always, you get a variety of weapons, future weapons, rifles, shotguns, pistols, laser rifles, all types of stuff. So the weapon variety, grenades, the weapon variety is nice. You do get the ability to control like a car. Like you might have like a driver and then you control like the gun turret or something. So they do have little sequences that break up just the regular gameplay of the Terminator, walking around, fighting and shooting and stuff like that, which is cool. Soundtrack, from what I remember, is fine. Just solid background music, nothing too memorable. I forgot Atari also developed Terminator Redemption as well, so cool. Um, that's about it, really. I mean, it's fine for what it is. Underrated, underrated movie, handheld movie game. It's like I said, solid. It's probably one of the better Terminator games. You do have to be knowledgeable, of course, of how much damage you take. If you take too much damage, there are health. You can pick up health items that will refill your energy. Um, but if you take too much damage, you will be walking around as an exoskeleton, which again is a cool little detail. Your character visually changes if you take too much damage, and then of course if you have maybe like 3 or 4 continues, of course you lose all your continues, you get a game over. So you also have to be knowledgeable. You have to pay attention to how much damage you take. But with all that being said, like I said, it's fun. It's fun for what it is. It's solid. I mean, if you're a fan of the series and if you're a fan of this movie, when this came out, people were kind of hit or miss about it. And I think you'll enjoy it. It's just a fun, like I said, a fun handheld adventure, basically. But like I said, I played it twice because, I liked it and I had fun with it and I was in the mood for Terminator content, so I had a good time. But that's about it for this one. Like I said, if you're interested, check it out. Rather buy the physical copy or play it on emulator. I think I played it on emulator. But yeah. Oh, excuse me. Like, comment, share, and stay tuned for more. Peace, you guys. What's up, you guys? Friendly Neighborhood Geek here, doing another handheld video game review. If you couldn't tell by now, I grew up with handheld consoles. I did have, I think I've mentioned this in previous videos, I did have consoles, PlayStation, Nintendo Wii, Nintendo 64, but I don't know, I've always had a fondness for handheld gaming. Yes, we are talking about two underrated gems. The Incredibles. Yes, from 2004. Disney's Pixar's The Incredibles. We're talking about the movie game, and it's, I guess, now non-canon sequel, The Incredibles Rise of the Underminer. Yeah, real quick, so I could get into the game. My history with The Incredibles, I remember when it came out back in 2004 or 2005. Unfortunately, I didn't see it in theaters, which would have been an experience. But all these years later, I've seen it hundreds of times. It's probably one of my favorite Disney movies, Disney Pixar films, probably my top 10 list of Pixar or Disney movies in general. The story was, entertaining, original, superhero family. I could tell they probably took a little inspiration from the Fantastic Four. Could see a little bit of similarities. And the fan base, fans always joke that The Incredibles is the best Fantastic Four movie, which is says a lot. Like, this movie is better. People say this movie is better than the actual Fantastic Four movies we got. But I think I've spoke my piece on those movies. I am fond of those Fantastic Four movies. But anyway, Incredibles 2 was kind of underwhelming for a lot of people. I thought it was okay. It was a strong follow-up, but I mean, that's that age gap, 14 years later, that's a long age gap to bring a sequel. I mean, it's fine for what it is. I still think one had a stronger narrative, but there were things about one that I didn't like that I felt like the sequel improved upon. So I will say that much. I don't know if I'll probably say that in the video, but like I said, like two. And if I'm going to watch the first one, like how I feel about the Amazing Spider-Man films, I'm most likely going to watch the sequel. So, like right after I finish the first one. But yeah, this, there was also a console version. This was developed by Disney Interactive and a couple other developers. Um, I I might play and talk about the console version because again, I never played that one growing up, nor did I ever play this one growing up. I only played this game or the first game like a couple years ago, and I played it again some months ago and still enjoyed it. But the console game again, it's kind of dated, but it has a lot of charm, and people have fond memories of that game. Um, so, like I said, I might so I could experience the 3D version. I might talk about that one. Um, but yeah, let's get into the gameplay of the first game since we're talking about two games in this review. Okay, so the first game is basically a beat 'em up, and it pretty much follows the plot points of the movie. If you haven't seen the movie, I don't know what to tell you. This is going on a 20-year-old film. Go watch it if you can. If you've never seen it from beginning to end, sit down and watch it. I promise you won't regret it. Um, but basically, it's about a family of superheroes, and a lot of other plot-oriented stuff happens. And we follow, like I said, the Incredibles, Mr. Incredible and his family. Each family member all has their own individual powers. Um, the main villain of the story has been well, it's kind of spoiler territory, but basically we have to stop the main villain and their evil plans, and like I said, a whole bunch of other stuff happens. But the story is fine. Like I said, follows the movie to a T. Really, not that bad. Like I said, all it's pretty much a beat 'em up. Now, when you play as the children, there are three children, but only two are playable in this game. When you play as Dash and Violet, their levels are different, and it switches up the gameplay. And they're fine for what they are. They're engaging. They're fine for what they are. Dash has super speed, so his levels were very interesting. And even in the console version, the way they handled how his powers work and the gameplay style, I think they did a pretty good job with that. Violet's was stealth based, which stealth in early mid 2000s games are kind of hit or miss. It works. You only play as Violet a couple times, which is probably a good thing. I know in the console version it's kind of like those levels where you play as Violet or those sequences were kind of tedious. So yeah, but like I said, you only play as her a couple times, so it doesn't bring the game down too much. Um, Mrs. Incredible has stretchy powers, so her levels, she uses her stretchy ability for some platform sequences, and like I said, she has beat 'em up gameplay style as well. But it's fun. I like switching it. Playing between Mr. and Mrs. Incredible is fun. Of course, Mr. Incredible is probably the most well-rounded out of the game, out of the family. He can do different abilities, being a veteran superhero. He can be kind of agile and, take out a lot of, he has superhuman strength, so take out a lot of enemies and stuff like that. So he's probably, like I said, he's probably the most fun to play as, then Mrs. Incredible, then Dash, then Violet being last. And I forgot, you do play as Frozone. But his are kind of like, his levels are kind of action oriented, where he's skiing or running on ice or whatever because he has ice powers. Those sequences can be a little tedious, especially on the final mission. But again, it breaks up the gameplay, and like, yeah, cool, get to play as Frozone, the black superhero. Um, I'm trying to think. Uh, Yeah, so my only gripe with this game, the variety of bosses is kind of bland, really. There's only two bosses that you really fight. Um, or no, maybe it's like three, I think, and two of them are robots. You don't fight the main villain of the movie, and I think it was like that in the console version as well, which I really thought was poorly handled. Like I feel like developers could have did that better. Like had a way to include the main villain of the movie, because you fight basically the main villain created a robot strong enough to take out superheroes, and that's who you fight at the end of the game is that said robot. I forgot there is a Lego Incredibles. I haven't played that yet. I would like to. That looks like a lot of fun since I grew up with the Lego games. So that's also an option if you're interested in checking that out. So Rise of the Underminer is an unofficial canon, I guess, yeah, at this point, non-canon sequel to the movie. It takes place right after the ending scene of the first Incredibles movie. And it has the villain, the Underminer, who's kind of like the Mole Man from Fantastic Four. Mole Man is a Fantastic Four villain. And you basically play as Mr. Incredible in Frozone. And again, Rise of the Underminer got a console game, and that, I think I've heard good things about that. Like, that's a solid multiplayer game. And again, now Frozone has actual combat gameplay in the sequel game. So it's cool. You can switch between Mr. Incredible and Frozone, and there's certain sequences where you have to use maybe Frozone's ice powers to progress, or you have to use Mr. Incredible's strength to progress. Once again, I don't think you fight. I can't remember if you fight the Underminer head on, like, in this game. But for what it is, it's fine, and it's just kind of cool. Like maybe some of the things that the first Incredibles game lacked, they may have improved upon in the sequel. But they're just two fun kids games, really. They can be challenging at times. Even for being beat 'em ups, they can be challenging, but they're fun. And like myself, if you're a fan of the movies, you'll probably get some enjoyment out of these, for what they are. Or like I say, you can check out the console versions if you want to. But yeah, that's probably it for this one. Again, I recommend both games. Like, comment, share, and stay tuned for more. Peace, you guys. What's up, you guys? Friendly Neighborhood Geek here. Happy belated Memorial Day. This, yeah, I'm recording this, the day after Memorial Day, so Tuesday. So I'm not sure this might be uploaded later in the week, or posted later in the week. Yeah. But yes, today we are looking at a really cool, I'm trying to find the best way to word it, like action-packed cop movie, I guess, crime movie. The best example I could give is if you've seen Rush Hour, like the way, for anyone, I'm sure plenty of people have seen Rush Hour with Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker. If you're familiar with those kind of action movies, with the comedy sprinkled in, that's what the movie today we're talking about. Hard Boiled, yes, directed by John Woo, who's a very well-known director in the film world. This stars Chow Yun-fat, who you see right there, up here, and a whole bunch of other talented Asian actors and actresses. But yes, Chow Yun-fat, excuse me, I knew him from Dragon Ball Evolution, which was one of the first movies I did on my channel, or I reviewed on my page, like way back in like 2023, 22 or something like that. That may get a re-review. I may have already re-reviewed it. I'm not sure. But he played Master Roshi in Dragon Ball Evolution, which he did a good job in that film. A lot of people kind of consider him one of the better parts of that movie is his acting. But he's been in a bunch of, like I said, Asian films, Asian cinema, and like I said, non-Asian films, which is really cool. Yeah, Chow Yun-fat's a really talented actor. I really like him. He was in Bulletproof Monk, which I've never seen. I don't know if I'll ever do a review on that one, but it's definitely a movie I'd like to check out one day. So in this movie, he plays a police officer, and he ends up working with a police detective who's undercover, and they're working together to take down a crime syndicate or a gang or something. I think it's more like a crime syndicate. Like, for example, like if you took Punisher and Daredevil from Marvel and they teamed up to take down the Kingpin and his crime organization or something. For anyone who's familiar with those characters. Um, but yeah, this, like I said, this was really good. So I'm a fan of Asian cinema. I mean, outside of like kaiju movies like Godzilla, Paul Gasari, the monster, traditional kaiju monster movies. Outside of those, I like Asian cinema. One day, hopefully in the future, I would love to visit Japan. Japan is one of my top places to go one day. So I've always admired and I've always liked the culture. So, like I said, the films from those countries are very entertaining. And Hard Boiled is definitely a strong example of that. Like, for example, again, the opening of the movie, like, the police are undercover and they're trying to stop. I think they're trying to arrest some people, some bad people who are trying to. I forgot the proper terminology. Um, they're trying to trade off drugs or something. Like I said, I'm not sure what terminology I want to use. Um, but then their cover is blown, and we see an all-out shootout in the restaurant, and just people just flying around, shooting each other. Like the opening of this film is really grabs your attention, and from that point on, you're just enjoying the story and just like, wow, what's going to happen next? It's very engaging. Like I said, the storyline is fairly, again, it's very straightforward, but it's very entertaining. The cast does a great job. Um, Unfortunately, I couldn't find this on streaming. Um, it is on YouTube. As of now, I saw this like a week ago. It is on YouTube. They do have English subtitles, which is great. I don't know if this movie ever got dubbed in English or not, but I enjoyed watching the subbed version. Excuse me. And yes, about 2 hours, I would say. This also came out in '92. I don't know what month exactly, but cool. But yeah, like with any region of the world, there's tons of movies to Asian movies to watch. I did one like a super obscure one, Kung Fu Masters from Beyond the Grave or something. It was just like a weird supernatural kung fu movie, low budget kung fu movie. I've done Forbidden Kingdom, which can't that was a childhood movie of mine. I believe the director for that movie was of Asian descent. Um, I'm trying to think. What's another one? Of course, like I did Paul Gasari, which was a Korean kaiju movie. I did Young Gary, which was I believe a Korean monster movie. I'm just naming some of the ones that I've seen, and I've watched, and I've done videos on. There's one really popular Japanese horror movie called House that I've seen that one, but surprisingly, I really didn't care for it when I saw it. I just thought it was kind of all right, kind of just bland, to be honest. I might need to give that a rewatch. Excuse me, because I would like to talk about that movie. It's a very popular Asian horror movie. And I believe that was produced by Toho, same people who own Godzilla. So stay tuned for that. I'll get around to rewatching that so I could do a proper video on it. And I did Sweet Home, which has a very interesting history. Sweet Home was again another Japanese or Asian horror movie. Again, check that out if you're interested. That's a good watch. And I did Guzu, which is a super duper obscure Asian horror movie that I really like the premise, but it ends open ended, and we don't really get a lot of background information about the antagonist of the movie. But for what it is, Guzu is, again, it's entertaining. And then we have Bloody Muscle Bodybuilder from Hell. I know, crazy, which is called Japanese Evil Dead, which, again, another Asian horror movie that is just really crazy and bonkers. And again, that's a fun one. So to say all that, Going down the list, I've done a lot of Asian movies, Asian directed movies. But like I said, Hard Boiled is good. Action is good. Acting solid. Cinematography is solid. You could tell they filmed the location, which is really cool. The finale of the movie takes place in a hospital, which is crazy. But again, it's really entertaining, and you know, your eyes are glued to the screen. Like, holy crap! You know what's gonna happen next? How's this gonna end? Um, it was crazy. There's a like I'm assuming they filmed in a real hospital. I would love to know like if there's behind the scenes like a behind the scene documentary about this movie. Because there's a scene where they have the whole I forgot the whole room where they keep newborn babies, and that was like kind of a plot at the end. Like they were trying to evacuate the hospital, and they were people were trying to rescue the little babies, and that was just kind of hilarious. Like I can't believe John Woo actually used real babies in these crazy sequences. But it was good. I really enjoyed it. It's definitely rewatchable, and I know there's a whole bunch of other movies like Hard Boiled. Um, again, the music again, soundtrack for what I remember was solid. Like I said, action was solid. Um, it's a good watch. It's a good watch, and it's on YouTube. So once again, as always, like, share, comment, follow, and stay tuned for more. Peace, you guys.